Anyway, hello everybody, and first of all, I really wanted to say thank you very much for coming to everybody who's here, because as you can see, the title of my talk is TBD, so it doesn't really and it doesn't really mean anything. And it's actually one of the very last talks of the day, and I didn't update my slide with Patrick, so you technically took a gamble that it was going to be a great talk. We'll see at the end if that was worth it or not. The good news, though, is that TBD is not what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about Wallet Connect, specifically V2 Wallet Connect, with a revolutionary multi-chain and chain-agnostic features, all that packaged within the Uniswap context. So I'll show you the journey of upgrading Uniswap interface to Wallet Connect V2, as well as some great new features of Wallet Connect. Before we get started, just a quick introduction about me. I'm Mike, and I go by this handle on screen almost everywhere, so it's easy to find. The fun fact is that I came up with this handle when I was really young, so I didn't really think how to pronounce this well in English. So I will not say it, but I'm gonna leave this up to you. So yeah, I work at Uniswap on the app platform team, where our main focus is to support other teams within Uniswap, as well as product, to be able to innovate faster. We spend a great deal of our time working on infrastructure and libraries, all in the open source, by the way, so I can finally get that GitHub streak going. And I know it doesn't look like it, but I actually used to do quite a lot of open source before Uniswap, just not last year. I spent my last 7 years of professional career working on and with React Native. I remember the day when it first came out, it was such a game changer. That's why I couldn't be more happy when I realized React and React Native were kind of silently dominating the Web3 space. I think it's kind of a standard stack these days, but actually it's a good question to you. So I don't know how many of you are front-end engineers, but how many of you are using React? Raise your hand. Okay, so what everybody else is using? I hope it's not Flutter then, but okay. Anyway, I think it's kind of a standard stack. However, you never know what the audience will say, right? Like, what if you guys said, like, we haven't heard about React? So to prove my point and make this presentation flow, I prepared evidence to prove it. And this is a photo from React Europe 2015, so it's like 7 years ago. And that was like the very first React conference held and organized in Paris. I think it was one of the largest React conferences back then. And you're probably asking yourself what this photo has to do with this conference, except for the fact that I'm standing right there in the middle of the screen, and I only had lightning talk. Actually, there's also Patrick right there, standing, and he happened to be the co-organizer of React Europe. So I kind of highlighted that fact, even though we look different these days, I guess. But as you can see, he's wearing the same t-shirt, like the same color. So that's kind of interesting fact. So anyway, I'm very excited to be doing this talk here, because this was my very first React talk when I was starting my React career. And I just got into Web3, and I'm doing this very first conference in Dubai, and he's organizing it. So I think it's a start of a great career again. So I joined Uniswap last year, and I immediately fell in love with it. I just love the brand, and I know you think I'm biased because I work there, and that's right. But hear me out. I work at many companies, and in fact, I run my own business as well for like 7 years. And it's not every day you see such extreme attention to details, user experience, especially when it comes to designing, testing, and prototyping new features. And my talk is heavily going to be influenced by those designing principles, especially when it comes to how we are rolling out Wallet Connect V2. And by the way, I would say that Uniswap almost reminds me of Apple, but they're not making it easy for us to release the mobile wallet, so I guess we'll skip that part. So take a look at those keywords. And if you're part of some Telegram crypto groups, I'm sure they all look familiar. We have heard probably like all of them today. Now the big question is, do we all have same understanding of their meaning? And I think it's not an easy question. Usually we tend to have different understanding of those terms. And before I got my full-time Web3 job, I was reading a lot of materials online. I was trying to understand what blockchain is. It is quite interesting that I couldn't understand what it was for like 3-4 years, up to a point that I almost gave up this whole Web3 career. Just because every article I was reading, every material I was looking at, like all those different keywords that I couldn't really understand, like what did it mean to, KYC somebody? Like I knew what KYC was as a noun, just not as a verb. That's why now that I got into Web3, I prefer to like make no assumptions and bring like all those topics down to the common ground, and that's what we'll be doing today as well with Wallet Connect. Theoretically, I could show you this snippet right away, which is pretty much taken right from Uniswap codebase. This is how you use Wallet Connect with Uniswap and call it a day. But I'm pretty sure this makes little to no sense to you at this point, and you can quote me later, of course. I guarantee this will become much clearer when we finish this talking about like, I guess 20 minutes. So what are we going to be talking about today? First, we'll have a high-level dApp architecture. This is actually quite bright. I didn't think about it before. Anyway, we're going to talk about high-level dApp and wallet architecture, how these things play together. Then we're going to take a look at Wallet Connect V2 and all the features. And at the end, I'll walk you through the upgrade process of Uniswap to V2, and we will see a cool demo as well. So let's start with the dApp architecture. While there are many different dApps out there, like decentralized exchanges, mobile wallets, decentralized social media platforms, there's one thing they all have in common, and that thing is a client, such as Uniswap web application. And that client wants to connect to a network like mainnet or a platform like Ethereum to do some stuff, query some data, maybe submit transactions. On a technical side, what happens is your application connects to Ethereum blockchain through RPC node to RPC node. RPC node is a special kind of node on a blockchain that accepts incoming data and can serve your requests. And that connection happens via a provider, and provider is usually exposed by a wallet just because certain transactions need to be signed or pretty much verified it's you. And there's different types of providers. Typically, we have three. It's injected provider, wallet connect provider, and JSON RPC provider. Injected provider, as the name suggests, it's injected. We'll talk about it in a second, usually by browser extensions such as MetaMask, Coinbase. I don't know if Zerion has browser extension. That might be my mistake. But another one is Wallet Connect Provider. That's when working with wallets that are running outside of your browser context, such as Uniswap mobile app, Rainbow, Trust Wallet. And the last one is JSON RPC Provider for advanced use cases that we're going to see as well. That's where you usually have private keys and you're connecting with something like third-party Web3 out service. So this is injected provider. Like I said, it's a provider injected into your browser context, usually available under window.ethereum. Other browser wallets quickly adopted this pattern and started using it as well. It's pretty much the de facto standard of how to design a secure browser extension wallet. So what MetaMask team did is they quickly redesigned their API to provide this detect provider method that will tell you what kind of provider you have and provide like unified interface for accessing the injected providers. Since the wallet is already injected and installed, there is no additional configuration needed. So as you can see, as soon as we detect provider, we can request accounts or any data from the blockchain without additional configuration. But then there is also Wallet Connect provider, and this one is different. First of all, it's named Ethereum provider, and we will talk about that later. But next, unlike injected provider, it has to be initialized with some parameters and then connected to your wallet through a certain session. And this is because wallets like Uniswap or Trust cannot inject anything to your browser context because, well, they're running on your mobile device. And as a result, there needs to be a connection between them that can make this whole thing working, and that's what Wallet Connect does with this beautiful QR code that I'm pretty sure you've all seen at least once in your Web3 career, and today counts as well, so I guess the answer is yes. So we scan this code, we authorize the connection, and then our mobile wallet and our dApp is authorized, and there is a session, so it's all working. How is it working? Like on this beautiful diagram, under the hood, it's actually from the dojo, toz.io, by the way, and the diagram is pretty self-explanatory, but just to go through it. Once you scan the QR code, the whole infrastructure, by the way, is built on top of the bidirectional WebSocket server, which is called Wallet Connect Relay Server. What happens is you scan the QR code and it establishes like a session through that WebSocket server, so it's like kind of like a chat infrastructure. Once you scan the QR code, once you approve that transaction, the session is established, and any other subsequent message like send transaction is sent through the JSON RPC to your wallet through, what happens at first hits the relay server contacts your mobile app through push notification. You open up the push notification, your wallet signs the message, sends it to blockchain, and sends back the result through the WebSocket server to your client. So that's pretty much what happens as per this screen. The last provider is static JSON RPC provider, which is the lowest level of abstraction as we can go. It works together with a signer like a wallet from Ether's project that can sign transaction locally given private keys. It's often used by self-custodial wallets, so when building something like a wallet and having access to private keys, this is the one that you can use. Is this useful in any other cases? Yes, like I said before, if you're building a dApp and you wanted to, I don't know, let your users connect with social media accounts, there is a service called Web3 Auth where you can do just this thing and you receive private keys that you can then use to create a wallet and make this signer object and then continue signing transactions. At the end of the day, all providers follow the EIP 1193 standard that defines provider API and the lifecycle. This is to promote wallet interoperability and just make it easier to work across different clients. As part of the standard, we have request method that allows us to pretty much query on-chain, query for on-chain data through that RPC node. It's async as per the type definition, and it returns promise with whatever is the data. There are also some other methods available and constraints as part of this Ethereum protocol. We're not going to be diving that deep, but I recommend you check it out if you want to learn how does this thing work under the hood. Pretty much the best way to learn Ethereum, React Native, or anything is just go through the spec and all those RFCs, pretty cool stuff. So while all providers follow an EIP 1193, there's still little differences across them, pretty much because of the way the underlying architecture works, doesn't just fall into one standard. For example, MetaMask is injected into your browser, so because of that, it's already initialized with RPC URLs and stuff like that. So all you have to do is you just detect it and just start querying the data. With Wallet Connect provider, you have to initialize it, establish the session through the QR code. So there is a bit more work. With JSON RPC provider, you kind of don't have to do anything. So the point I'm trying to make is that those differences can be especially challenging when you're building UI like this, which is Uniswap Connect Wallet model, where you have different connectors. And at Uniswap, we support MetaMask, Coinbase Wallet, and Wallet Connect by default. Each one of them has its own quirks and features, so in order for us to offer the best user experience, we have to make sure that we handle each wallet independently. That's why we created Web3 React, which has a very minimal and extensible API for connecting to blockchain. It also has a collection of React hooks, such as use chain ID, use accounts, for just making it easy for you to integrate with React. It abstracts the provider away so that when you're building your application, you can focus on making a nice reusable interface using a abstracted away connector rather than accessing that wallet connect that, as you can see, is there right inside. So thanks to this minimal API, it is a very stable library that doesn't really require much maintenance, to the point that we actually didn't have to release much fixes since the very first time we released it. And as a result, we never moved it out of beta. So I was like, this is a great idea. Let's drop the beta right now. So I'm happy to say that to all of you that you have like insider info, given the number of you on this stage, that we're dropping beta, and Web3 React will now be moving out of beta. So one checkbox is that. I'm hoping we get through them all till the end of the talk. So there's a bunch of fixes and features as part of Wallet, not Wallet Connect 2.0, but Web3 React. But there is one that I wanted to get your attention specifically, which is upgrading to Wallet Connect V2. So let's talk about that now. How many of you have seen this QR code before? Okay. Okay. So not many, but this is kind of expected. So this is what Wallet Connect V2 model looks like. As you can see, the QR code is still at its center, but it's fancy, it's new, has theming options and capabilities. So what are the new features coming up apart from the visuals? And just one more comment on the fact that you didn't see it. I just wanted to kind of emphasize on the general philosophy that we have together with Wallet Connect team. We're trying to make this upgrade as seamless as possible. Wallet Connect V2 is not backwards compatible, so we're working all together behind the scenes trying to make it a seamless process for you. So the reason why you didn't see it before is that we were trying to make it as quick, as smooth as that. When it finally happens, when it's deprecated in June 28th, 2023, you will all immediately see it, but everything is going to work just fine. So this is the release date. We'll see what happens. And so the reason they're not compatible is that those QR codes are different. Like I didn't really pay much attention to the QR code shape before at all, but it is easy to see the difference, and the difference is with the payload. So they're not compatible. But the Wallet Connect V2 compatible wallet can read the V1 QR code. So the only problem is that V1 wallets and V1 dApps cannot work with the V2 QR code. So as soon as all the wallets like Uniswap, Trust, Rainbow upgrade to Wallet Connect V2, dApps, so you developing dApps can start upgrading to V2 as well without risking your users not being able to use V2. If you were to now go to any application that were using Wallet Connect V2 with, let's say, Rainbow Wallet or Uniswap Mobile Wallet, that wouldn't work. So it's just something you have to keep in mind. For my testing, I'm using Trust Wallet because they were like one of the very first to ship it. So what are the great features? There's lots of great features, as you can see, but we're not going to be talking about these. If you are interested in these features, you can check out the Wallet Connect official blog post about this release on their website. Pairing session separation is really cool. Just imagine not having to scan QR code each time. That is a pretty cool thing. We're going to talk about mostly chain agnostic interface and multi-chain support. Something that I think will have huge impact on like the general UX of how we work with dApps in general. So I wanted to show you a quick demo of how does it look right now on Uniswap. As you can see, you scan the QR code, you approve it, of course, then you can change networks. And as you start changing networks, you have to approve this change request every time. So I think this is pretty standard workflow. I don't really have to bring something new here. However, what I wanted to show you now is how this could look like once V2 is rolled out everywhere by showing you the preview of Uniswap running V2. So the QR code is different right now. We are scanning it with Trust Wallet. As you can see, I had to approve all the chains. And now, as soon as I start changing chains, there is nothing I have to sign. So you can forget about your wallet and just keep working like you were using the single chain. So the biggest difference is that there is no chain change request to be approved because that happened initially at the very first thing. That's what maybe you have seen, but in case you didn't, I can go one step back and show you. You will see on the left side, you will see there's like 5 chains on the model right there. So that's what happens here. Right, so let's talk about the upgrade path and how you can make this all happen, because that sounds like something that is not backwards compatible, so it probably means that there is a lot of work to be done. Thanks to Web3 React, there is actually not much work that has to be done. Of course, there is like 3 lines added of code and some if handling, but that's pretty much it. So believe it or not, it's just this. So I was like, is this the very first time there's going to be an upgrade that doesn't really have like breaking changes? Turns out not. It says the opposite. And then this is where the actual work happened. This is the Web3 React Wallet Connect V2 upgrade PR, which is like the biggest PR of my life. It has like over 150 comments. And by the way, none of them are nitpicks. It's like huge discussions. Honestly, this was like bigger than any PR that I've done to React Native. And we shipped some fundamental features before anyway. So it's worth checking out if you are like curious how those things work under the hood, but for time being, I'm just gonna skip it and focus on like high-level things here. So we already know that provider is where the connection between your dApp and your wallet happens in order to connect to RPC node and blockchain. So let's start here. And Wallet Connect V2 brings 2 types of providers instead of just one. First one being Ethereum provider that we've seen before, and second one universal provider, which is where the magic happens. So let's start with the first one, because that sounds like something you may want to use right away. So if you're building on Ethereum and you're looking for a drop-in replacement, of course, Ethereum provider is something that you should look at. It is a EIP 1193 compatible provider, so you can expect all those request on and remove listener methods to be available for you to use right away. It is pretty much just like MetaMask, injected provider or Wallet Connect V1 provider, and the name is pretty much self-explanatory. As a result, as you can tell from this div, of course, excluding all this session management handling, which had different properties because, like I said, the pairing session separation happened. As you can see, we're still using the same request, and we are still passing same method and parameters in order to change the actual chain. You may be thinking, why do we change chains if I said this was going to be multi-chain, right? The reason is simple. It's because of the EIP 1193 specification, which says that each request has to be addressed against a specific arbitrary chain. So TLDR is that even if you're having multi-chain session under the hood, you have to have higher level abstraction that is using a single chain on top of it. So in practice, it means that there is a special case wallet switch Ethereum chain within Wallet Connect V2, which, as you can see, is not calling RPC. It's just changing the default chain internally inside the code base. So it mimics this behavior, but it's not really doing anything actually with the actual wallet. It's setting the default chain to use. Handle switch chain is calling this set default chain. So what happens is that this default chain will be later reused for subsequent requests. And as you can see, you cannot really change it. The request method has some arguments, and these arguments are passed as first argument to the request on signer. But second argument is always hard-coded to the default wallet, so even if you were to change it, you cannot. You have to go through this life cycle, which is what the EIP 1193 tells you to do to follow this life cycle. If your use case required something more advanced, like multi-chain support, and you didn't want to change chains every time, you could look into universal provider, which is what Ethereum provider uses under the hood. So we can think of it as Ethereum provider is this easy-to-use compatible provider, but for advanced use cases, you can go with the universal provider. So let's look at that one right now. As the name suggests, it's universal, so it's less constrained. to a specific blockchain and doesn't really follow Ethereum specification. That's why it can offer multi-chain and chain-agnostic interface. So first thing you will notice is that in order to connect to Polygon, which is this first element in array, 137 is the chain ID of Polygon mainnet, and in order to connect to Ethereum mainnet, you have to pass a namespaces object, and then you have to use EIP 155 for Ethereum, and then maybe other namespaces for other blockchains. If you're wondering where these are coming from, there is a specification for it. It's called chain agnostic. It's led by Wallet Connect team as well, and it's coordinating efforts across different networks to establish a chain agnostic interface. Thanks to that, we can really have a very nice, elegant interface, because let's say we want to add Cosmos to the table, so we can declare a new namespace. In this case, the namespace for Cosmos is Cosmos as well, and we can specify an array of methods, an array of chains. And you are probably now wondering what these methods has to do. Is that something that pretty much tells us the available RPC methods? Not quite. When you're using Ethereum provider, you're not thinking about it because that's already configured for you, but it's just something that you can keep in mind. The methods array lets you specify the methods that should be called against your wallet. Everything else goes straight to RPC. So let's imagine that we were to call ETH sign transaction. That should go to methods array, otherwise it will not go through the wallet and will not be signed by you. So we are actually setting the methods that we want to read through the wallet, and the rest goes straight to the RPC. So that's pretty much what this is doing. So now that we have configured our provider, we can start requesting different things. And as you can see, the first thing you will notice is that request from universal provider has slightly different shape. It is not method name and arguments. It's an object that accepts method name and arguments. And you have second one, which is chain ID, with the namespace, by the way. So don't take it well, like don't pass numbers here. And as you can see, we can have one request after another, or maybe in parallel, to different chains without executing a chain switch. And thanks to that, we can seamlessly switch them on per request basis. But I'm not sure if you have noticed that the way this thing is set up is that both chains are required, right? So in order for the session, Wallet Connect session to go through and be established, your wallet has to support both Cosmos and Ethereum EVM compatible chains like Polygon and Ethereum. But what if it didn't? Right? Like that doesn't seem like a good idea for your app to pretty much reject connection if it's not supported. So while it's good to have ability to change chains when building an app, like let's say you were building a decentralized exchange, for example, and you wanted to support different EVM compatible chains like Polygon, Arbitrum, or Optimism, sure, that's fine. You can pass all those chains here, but what if my wallet doesn't support one of them? Yeah, like you shouldn't reject the connection, right? That just doesn't make any sense. Thankfully, just like you have namespaces object, you also have optional namespaces object. So everything that is not required by your dApp to work, but is something that is a added functionality, can go to optional namespaces, and then it will be optional, not required. And similarly, you could consider putting all of them into optional namespaces. You know, I think this is fascinating from the UX perspective. Just imagine that you were going to Uniswap and you were having all those, you have all those chains in the chain selector. Like, how do we go about choosing which are required and which are optional from your like UX standpoint? So I think unless you're building a truly multi-chain application that requires like both Polygon maybe and Solana to work, I think this is fair question to answer. And the point I'm making is that these are like, there's more questions like this. You know, like what should happen to the chain selector? How do we show the active chain if it's an array now? Because there is no single chain right now, there's an array now. So how do we change our interface to reflect those changes? Not easy questions, and I consider them really fascinating because, you know, I think that we're entering this beautiful era in Web3 development where we get an opportunity like nobody before to answer and work on those fundamental questions. It's like, you know, imagine you were just starting JavaScript development and TypeScript development. Like these things are already done. There is unlikely you can contribute to something meaningful to JS standard these days. We have classes, optional chaining, and all that stuff. It's all done. Same with React Native, right? It's not like React Native 7 years ago where, you know, the getting started experience was very rough and you could innovate. But this is what's happening right now. You can pretty much innovate right now because we are reinventing those things, and this is really fascinating. We'll be answering those questions, of course, internally, and as soon as we figure them out, we'll be sharing them with you as well, and you will probably notice them when the UI changes. But before we close it off, I actually think these are great questions, and I want you to think about them later today, maybe later this week. And I have something very special to make you even more inspired, and it's related, of course, to our beautiful mobile wallet. Just for those of you who haven't seen this mobile wallet, it's our latest product, which is a essence of Uniswap UX right at your fingertips. You can check different charts, search for any token, seamlessly swap across L1, L2 networks, everything real time with push notifications. The UI is really beautiful. There's only one problem. You cannot get it right now because it's not, well, not in the App Store yet. Apple is not making it easy. So what we did is we are rolling it out through test flight to a selected number of, limited number of test users, because you cannot really onboard a lot of people. But we really wanted to start rolling out the access across different community events. So I figured, like, since I think I'm the only employee of Uniswap working in this region, especially Dubai, actually live here, so that sounded like a good idea to have something special for you, which is early access to Uniswap mobile wallet. Only 50 seats available, so I think pretty much everybody here in this room counts in, so you should quickly scan the code before it's gone and play around with it. In case you didn't make it happen or you cannot make it happen, and by the way, this is going live, so everybody watching live stream, you should hurry up because everybody's like holding phones right now here, unless the live streaming guys cut out the QR code to make it easier for everybody here. Anyway, if you couldn't make it, check out our GitHub. We have this Uniswap mobile code up there. You can play around with it. You can try running it yourself and check all sorts of different things. And also join our Discord where we can discuss it as well. And I think with that in mind, you know, we can kind of close it off. So thank you very much and a happy Eve Dubai.
Give it up for Mike. So if you have questions for Mike, we're a little bit running late for the panel, so catch him as he comes off stage with any questions. And thank you again, Mike.